Nobody ran from the Dracorath faster than the Pellini merchants. Their 12 legs carried them away so quickly that they left half their trade goods scattered across the floor. Danny Reeves watched them go, then turned his attention back to the creatures that had caused such terror. They were magnificent. 9 feet tall at the smallest, the Dracorath moved through the station's common area like living weapons. Their scales caught the light in shades of black and deep red. 4 arms hung from their massive frames, each one ending in claws that could tear through hull plating. Their faces combined the worst features of lizards and big cats, and their eyes glowed with soft bioluminescence. Danny had read about them during his journey to Helios 9. The Dracorath were the galaxy's most feared warriors. They had never lost a ritual combat in 800 years. Most species considered them monsters. Danny thought they moved like grizzly bears. Dangerous, yes, but there was intelligence in those glowing eyes, purpose. He stayed where he was, sitting at a small food station, eating something that tasted like spicy noodles. Around him, the common area emptied. Beings of all shapes and sizes fled in every direction. Within 30 seconds, Danny was alone with the Dracorath delegation. 3 of the younger warriors noticed him. They changed direction, approaching with what Danny recognized as curiosity mixed with amusement. They circled him slowly, making sounds in their deep, rumbling language. One of them, a female with scales the color of polished obsidian, spoke in accented galactic common. "They ask if you are lost, small creature. They want to know if you need help finding where the food animals hide." Danny looked up at her. She was the smallest of the group, maybe 8 feet tall, still massive compared to his 5'6" frame. "I'm fine where I am," he said. He nodded toward the largest of the young warriors, whose scales showed deep crimson patterns. "Those markings on his shoulders, is that coloring from diet or genetics? It's beautiful work either way." The translator blinked. Her inner eyelids flicked across her glowing eyes in what might have been surprise. She spoke to the others in their language. The crimson-scaled warrior tilted his head, studying Danny with new interest. He responded in a series of growls and clicks. "He says the color comes from his bloodline," the female translated. "He asks, why you do not run, why you do not smell of fear." Danny considered the question. "Where I come from, we have animals called grizzly bears, 800 pounds of muscle and claws. I spent 10 years working in their territory, rescuing hikers who got lost in the mountains." He shrugged. "You learn pretty quick that running just makes predators want to chase you, and fear makes them think you're prey." The female's eyes widened slightly. "You are a hunter." "Rescue specialist, but I've tracked predators across some of the roughest terrain on my planet." Danny smiled. "You folks are impressive, but you're not the first dangerous thing I've shared a meal with." One of the warriors laughed, a deep rumbling sound that vibrated through Danny's chest. He spoke rapidly to the others. "He says you are either very brave or very stupid," the female translated. There was something like respect in her voice now. "He cannot decide which." "Probably both," Danny admitted. From across the common area, another Dracorath watched. This one was larger than the others, 11 feet of scarred muscle and ancient battle wisdom. His scales were deep crimson, almost black in places, and an old wound had taken one of his eyes. He stood perfectly still, observing the small human who sat calmly among his young warriors. Gornash had led the Bloodclaw clan for 60 years. He had killed more enemies than he could count. He had faced beings that thought themselves gods and taught them the meaning of mortality. But he had never seen a prey species look at his people with genuine curiosity instead of terror. The small human was not frozen with fear. He was not putting on a brave face. Gornash could smell emotions across a room, and this creature radiated nothing but calm interest, perhaps even appreciation. "Fascinating." A shrieking alarm cut through the station. Red lights began flashing. A mechanical voice announced in multiple languages. "Hull breach in Sector 7. Emergency protocols engaged. All personnel evacuate to designated safe zones." The remaining beings in the area began moving toward the exits. Danny stood, but he did not head for safety. Instead, he looked toward Sector 7, reading the emergency displays mounted on the walls. "Multiple life signs in the breach zone," he muttered. "Bulkhead failure imminent." The female Dracorath grabbed his arm. "Small one, you must evacuate. The breach zone is death." Danny gently removed her grip. "There are people trapped in there. Kids, probably. The life signs are clustered in what looks like a school group. The station's emergency teams will handle it." Danny was already moving toward the danger. "Emergency teams are spread across multiple breach points. Sector 7 won't get help in time." He glanced back at her. "What's your name?" "Sierra." "Nice to meet you, Sierra. I'm Danny." Then he was gone, running toward the flashing red lights while everyone else ran away. Gornash watched him disappear into the emergency corridor. The Alpha's remaining eye narrowed with interest. "That one," he said quietly, "runs toward death to save strangers." Sierra moved to stand beside him. "He is very small, Alpha, soft. He will die in there." "Perhaps," Gornash began walking toward Sector 7. "Perhaps not. I would see what a human does when the fire comes." Behind him, his warriors followed. They did not know why their Alpha was interested in one tiny human. But they would learn. The corridor to Sector 7 was chaos. Emergency lights painted everything in shades of red and orange. Smoke poured from damaged ventilation systems. Station security officers ran past Danny, shouting into communicators about multiple breach points across the station. Nobody stopped him. In the confusion, one small human moving against the flow of traffic was easy to miss. Danny reached the observation window overlooking Sector 7's main cargo bay. What he saw made his stomach drop. A hole the size of a car had been punched through the outer hull. Emergency force fields flickered weakly across the gap, barely holding back the vacuum of space. Inside the bay, 12 beings huddled together behind a stack of cargo containers. Danny recognized several species, a group of young Torvally students, their teacher, and 2 smaller figures with scales that glowed in the emergency lighting. Dracorath children. The atmospheric readings on his wrist display told the story. The force fields were failing. The cargo bay would lose atmosphere completely in approximately 4 minutes. Danny spotted the manual override panel for the emergency bulkheads. It was on the far side of the bay, past a section of corridor that had already lost atmosphere. The force fields there had failed completely, leaving a 20-meter stretch of pure vacuum between him and the controls. An emergency EVA suit hung in a wall compartment nearby. Danny grabbed it, checking the size. It was designed for a Torvally, close enough to human dimensions, but the fit would be poor. The oxygen supply showed 12 minutes remaining. He pulled on the suit. The seals felt wrong. The helmet sat awkwardly on his head, but it would have to do. Danny cycled through the airlock and stepped into the vacuum-exposed corridor. The cold hit him immediately, even through the suit. His breath fogged inside the helmet. Warning indicators flashed across his display. The suit was losing pressure from a bad seal around his left shoulder. He had maybe 3 minutes of air instead of 12. Danny moved fast. His training took over. In the mountains, he had learned to work through pain, through exhaustion, through conditions that would kill an unprepared person in minutes. This was no different. The environment wanted him dead. His job was to not let it win. Behind him, pressed against an observation window, Sierra watched with 3 other Dracorath warriors. They had followed Gornash to Sector 7 and now stood witness to something they did not understand. "What is he doing?" one warrior asked. "He cannot survive in vacuum." "He is trying to reach the manual override," Sierra said quietly. "If he can close the emergency bulkheads from that panel, the trapped ones will be saved." "His suit is failing. We can see the vapor escaping from his shoulder." "Yes." "He knows this. He continues anyway." "Yes." The warriors exchanged glances. This was not prey behavior. Prey fled from death. This small human was walking directly into it. Danny reached the manual override panel. His fingers were going numb inside the gloves. The bad seal was getting worse. He could feel the cold spreading across his shoulder and down his arm. His vision was starting to blur at the edges. Oxygen deprivation. He had maybe 30 seconds. His hands moved across the panel. Override code. Confirm. Initiate bulkhead closure. The system demanded a second confirmation. Something about atmospheric readings in the protected zone. Danny's lungs burned. His suit had stopped providing oxygen completely. He was running on whatever air remained in his bloodstream. 15 seconds. He jabbed the confirmation button. The emergency bulkhead slammed shut with a sound he felt through his failing suit rather than heard. Atmosphere began flooding back into the cargo bay. The trapped beings were safe. Danny collapsed. He lay on the deck. As emergency systems pumped atmosphere back into the corridor around him, his suit had failed completely. Frost formed on his exposed skin where the shoulder seal had given way. Blood vessels had burst in his eyes, turning the whites red. But he was breathing. The Dracorath children were the first to reach him. They stood over his body, making sounds of distress in their language. Their scales were not yet hardened, still soft with youth. They could not have been more than 5 years old in Dracorath terms. When Station Medical arrived, they found the small human surrounded by Dracorath. The children refused to leave his side. Their small claws gripped his damaged suit, holding onto him like he was something precious. Gornash pushed through the medical team. He looked down at the human, this tiny creature who had walked through death itself to save Dracorath young. "Why?" he asked. His voice was deep and rough with something that might have been emotion. Danny opened his ruined eyes, speaking hurt, everything hurt. "They were scared," he managed. His voice was barely a whisper through cracked and bleeding lips. "Kids shouldn't have to be that scared." Gornash stood motionless for a long moment. Around him, his warriors waited. The station medical team waited. Even the rescued Torvali students and their teacher waited. Then the Alpha of the Blood Claw clan did something that none of them understood. He knelt. A Dracorath Alpha knelt before no one. It was not done. It had never been done. "Bring him," Gornash commanded. "Our healers will treat him. He breathes with us now." Sierra's breath caught. The phrase was ancient, sacred. "Alpha," she said carefully, "that blessing has not been spoken to an outsider in 400 years. "Then it is long overdue." Gornash rose. "This one has earned it." The medical team tried to protest, but the Dracorath were already lifting Danny carefully, supporting his broken body with hands that could crush steel. They carried him into their territory, and the galaxy began to change. Danny woke to darkness and warmth. The air smelled different here, thicker, with a hint of something primal that reminded him of the big cat enclosure at the Denver Zoo. His body ached in ways he did not know were possible, but the sharp edge of the pain had faded. He was lying on something soft, furs maybe, real ones, not synthetic. "You wake," Sierra's voice came from somewhere to his left. "Healers said you would sleep for another day. Humans continue to surprise us." Danny tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. How long was I out? 16 hours. Our healers used techniques from our homeworld. Your body healed faster than it should have. Sierra moved into his field of vision. Her scales seemed darker here in the dim lighting of the Dracorath section. There may be side effects, heightened senses, increased sensitivity to light and sound. Wonderful, Danny managed to push himself up against the wall behind him. "Where am I?" "The healing alcove of the Blood Claw clan. You are in Dracorath territory now." Sierra sat down across from him, folding her 4 arms in a gesture that seemed contemplative. "Do you understand what Gornash did when he said you breathe with us?" "I'm guessing it's important." "It is a provisional acceptance. You are not quite clan, but you are no longer prey. You exist somewhere between. This status has not been granted to an outsider in over 400 years. Danny absorbed this information. "Why me?" Because you walked through death for our children. Sierra's eyes glowed softly in the darkness. We are predators, Danny. We understand the instinct to protect young, but we did not expect to see it in a species we considered weak. The next 3 days were strange. Danny was allowed to move freely through the Dracorath section of the station, and what he found there challenged everything the galaxy believed about these creatures. They were not mindless monsters. Their living spaces were decorated with art, carvings, and weavings that told stories of hunts and battles spanning centuries. They played music on instruments made from bone and crystal. Their children learned history and philosophy alongside combat training. And they watched Danny with growing fascination. The young warriors who had mocked him before now kept their distance, unsure how to treat him. He had earned respect through the rescue, but he was still small, still soft. The contradiction confused them. One of them, a hot-headed warrior named Drax, could not accept it. His crimson scales bristled every time Danny walked past. On the 4th day, Drax made his challenge. "This creature does not belong here," he announced to a gathering of warriors. "He saved our children through luck, nothing more. He is not worthy of the blessing he received." Gornesh watched from his raised platform, but did not intervene. "I challenge him to the trial of shadows," Drax continued. "Let him prove his worth in the hunting grounds, or let him be cast out." Sierra stepped forward to protest, but Danny raised his hand. "I accept." The biodome level of Helios 9 had been modified for the trial. Dense artificial jungle filled a space half a kilometer across. The lighting had been reduced to near darkness. Environmental hazards, unstable ground, toxic plants, hidden traps had been added. Danny entered from the north, Drax entered from the south. The rules were simple. Danny had to track and tag Drax, place a marker on him before Drax could hunt Danny down. No weapons, no killing, but broken bones were acceptable. Danny had 12 hours. For the first hour, he did nothing. He found a concealed position near a water source and simply watched, listened, learned. The jungle was alive with sounds. Small creatures moved through the undergrowth. Water dripped from artificial canopies, and somewhere in the darkness, a 9-foot predator was hunting him. But Danny had spent 10 years in the Rocky Mountains. He had tracked grizzlies through dense forest. He had followed mountain lions across terrain that would kill an unprepared hiker in hours. He knew how predators thought. Drax was making a mistake common to apex hunters. He was focused on finding prey. He moved in expanding circles, searching for Danny's trail, never considering that the prey might be hunting him instead. Danny began to move, not toward Drax, but in parallel. He found Drax's trail and began reading it. The Dracorath was frustrated. Danny could see it in the depth of his footprints, the way he had slashed at vegetation in annoyance. Over the next 4 hours, Danny set traps, not to harm, to misdirect. False trails, sounds that would draw Drax in the wrong direction. He used the jungle against the hunter. By hour 8, Drax was exhausted and confused. He had found Danny's trails everywhere and nowhere. The humans seemed to be in multiple places at once. Danny waited in the branches above Drax's resting spot. He had climbed up 30 minutes ago, while Drax was chasing another false trail. When Drax settled against a tree to catch his breath, Danny dropped silently behind him and pressed the marker to his back. "Tag," he said. Drax spun, claws extended, but the trial was over. He stared at Danny in disbelief. "You were hunting me," Drax said slowly. "The entire time you were hunting me. That's how we survived on Earth." Danny offered his hand to help Drax up from where he had fallen. "We weren't the strongest, we weren't the fastest, but we learned to think like the things that hunted us." Drax stared at the offered hand for a long moment. Then he took it. When they emerged from the biodome, Gornash was waiting. In his clawed hand, he held a single scale, his own, carved with a symbol. "You hunt with the patience of the old ones," the Alpha said. "Tomorrow you learn what this means." Danny looked at the scale in his hand. Around him, Dracorath warriors stared in disbelief. He had just been given a scale of witnessing, and nothing would ever be the same. Sierra found Danny in the observation deck, watching the binary stars that Helios 9 orbited. She settled beside him, her massive form somehow graceful in the low light. "The scale of witnessing," she said. "Do you understand what it means?" Danny turned the carved scale over in his hands. The symbol etched into it seemed to pulse with faint bioluminescence. "Tell me." "You will be allowed to observe the naming of brotherhood. It is our most sacred ritual. No outsider has ever witnessed it." "Why me?" "Because Gornash sees something in you." Sierra paused. "And because something is wrong on this station, and he believes you may help us see what we cannot." She was right. Danny had noticed it too. Over the next 2 days, he began investigating. The hull breach that had nearly killed those children was not an accident. The debris pattern was wrong. He had seen enough avalanche sites and structural failures to recognize the difference between natural damage and deliberate sabotage. Someone had tried to kill those Dracorath children on purpose. Danny used his access as a human diplomat to move through parts of the station the Dracorath could not go. He spoke with maintenance workers, reviewed security footage, and tracked purchase records for specialized equipment. The trail led to the Hellion Trade Consortium, a coalition of wealthy merchant species who dominated trade on Helios 9. "They want us gone," Danny explained to Gornash in the Alpha's private chamber. "The Dracorath presence makes other species nervous. Trade has dropped 15% since your delegation arrived. They decided to solve the problem permanently." Gornash's remaining eye burned with cold fury. "They attacked our children. And they're not done." Danny spread out the evidence he had gathered. "They plan to present falsified evidence to the station council tomorrow. They'll claim the Dracorath caused the breach through aggressive behavior. They have forged security footage, fake witness statements, paid experts. Then we will destroy them. If you do that, you prove their point. Every species on this station will believe Dracorath are exactly what the consortium says, dangerous animals that cannot be trusted." Danny met the Alpha's gaze. "Let me handle this." The station council chamber was packed. Representatives from 30 species filled the curved seats, while observers crowded the gallery above. At the center, the consortium leadership presented their case against the Dracorath. "The evidence is clear," the lead consortium speaker declared. He was a Pellini, his 12 legs arranged smugly beneath his glossy body. "The Dracorath delegation engaged in threatening behavior that damaged station infrastructure. For the safety of all beings, they must be removed." Holographic displays showed altered security footage. Expert witnesses testified about Dracorath aggression. The case seemed overwhelming. Then Danny stepped forward. "I request the right to present counter-evidence." The Pellini speaker sneered. "And who are you, small human?" "Danny Reeves, diplomatic observer." Danny walked to the center of the chamber. "And the person who actually saved those children from the breach your people caused." The chamber erupted. Danny waited for the noise to die down, then began presenting his evidence. Maintenance records showing consortium agents had accessed Sector 7 hours before the breach. Purchase orders for microexplosive charges. Communication logs discussing how to make the sabotage look like an accident. But the most damaging evidence was the unaltered security footage Danny had recovered from a backup system the consortium had not known existed. The footage showed a consortium agent planting the device that would breach the hull. "The Dracorath did not cause the breach," Danny said into the stunned silence. "The consortium tried to murder children and frame an innocent species for it." The consortium leadership tried to flee. They did not get far. Station security was waiting at every exit. In the aftermath, Gornash found Danny sitting alone in the emptying council chamber. The Alpha lowered himself onto the seat beside the human, a gesture that drew startled looks from passing species. "You defended our honor," Gornash said, "when we could not see the attack coming. It needed to be done." Many things need to be done. Few beings risk themselves to do them. The Alpha was silent for a moment. The naming of brotherhood occurs in 2 days. You will not merely witness it. Danny looked up sharply. What do you mean? You have bled with us. You have hunted with us. You have guarded our honor when we could not guard it ourselves. Gornash stood, his massive form blocking out the chamber's lights. The ceremony is for you, Danny Reeves. Before Danny could respond, the other Dracorath in the chamber, 20 warriors who had entered silently during their conversation, dropped to one knee. Their clawed hands pressed against their chests in a gesture of profound respect. Sierra was among them. She looked up at Danny with something like awe in her glowing eyes. "This has never happened," she said. "In all our history, no outsider has been offered the brotherhood." Danny looked at the kneeling warriors. At Gornash, who stood with the weight of 800 years of tradition on his scarred shoulders. "I don't know if I'm worthy of this," Danny said honestly. "That is precisely why you are," Gornash replied. "True warriors do not seek glory. They do what must be done and expect nothing in return." He placed a massive clawed hand on Danny's shoulder. "Rest now. The trials ahead will test everything you are." As Danny left the chamber, he could feel the eyes of the station upon him. Word was already spreading. A human, small, soft, fragile, was about to become brother to the most feared species in the galaxy. And nobody knew what that would mean for the future. The ceremonial chamber took Danny's breath away. The Dracorath had transformed their section of the station into something ancient and sacred. Holographic projections created towering stone walls covered in carved symbols. Real flames burned in massive braziers, their heat making the air shimmer. The scent of incense mixed with something older, the primal smell of the Dracorath homeworld. Hundreds of Dracorath filled the chamber, their scales gleaming in the firelight. They stood in perfect silence, their glowing eyes fixed on the small human at the center of the space. Sierra walked beside Danny, guiding him through the preparations. Her voice was low and serious. "The naming requires 3 trials." She explained. "The trial of blood, you completed this when you bled for our children. The trial of shadow, you completed this when you hunted Drax in the biodome." She paused. "The trial of fire remains." "What does it involve?" Sierra pointed to the far end of the chamber. A corridor stretched between 2 rows of massive braziers. The flames rose higher than Danny's head, and the heat was intense even from this distance. "You must walk through the flames," Sierra said. "It represents the fires of our homeworld, where our ancestors were forged into warriors. Every Dracorath who receives the Brotherhood makes this walk." "Your scales protect you." "Yes," Sierra looked at him with something like sorrow. "Your skin will not." Danny studied the corridor of fire. The flames licked hungrily at the air between the braziers. At minimum, he would suffer severe burns. At worst, he would not survive. "Has anyone ever refused the trial of fire?" "Some have. They are not dishonored for it." Sierra touched his arm gently with one clawed hand. "No one would think less of you for refusing, Danny. You have already proven yourself beyond any doubt." Danny looked at the gathered Dracorath. He saw Drax among them, the young warrior who had challenged him in the biodome. He saw the children he had saved, their small forms pressed close to their parents. He saw Gornash, standing tall and ancient at the end of the fire corridor. They had accepted him despite everything that made him different. They had given him respect, protection, a place among them. They were offering him family. "I'll walk," Danny said. The chamber fell silent as he approached the entrance to the fire corridor. The heat was already painful, pressing against his skin like a physical force. He could feel his hair beginning to curl from the temperature. Danny thought about his years in the mountains, the blizzards he had survived, the falls he had taken, the times he had pushed through pain and exhaustion to bring lost hikers home. This was no different. The environment wanted him dead. His job was to not let it win. He stepped into the flames. The pain was beyond anything he had ever experienced. His arms raised instinctively to protect his face, but there was no escape from the heat. It surrounded him, consumed him, became his entire world. He kept walking. Halfway through, his legs buckled. The pain had become too much. His vision was going gray at the edges, his body screaming at him to stop, to fall, to let the fire end it. Then he felt a presence beside him. Gornash had entered the fire corridor. The Alpha walked next to Danny, his massive form blocking some of the flames. His scarred scales were beginning to darken from the heat. Even Dracorath's scales had limits. "Brothers do not let brothers walk through fire alone," Gornash said. Behind them, something incredible happened. Drax stepped into the flames, then Sira, then another warrior and another, until the entire Bloodclaw clan was walking through fire beside Danny. Their bodies formed a shield around him. They could not stop the pain, but they shared it. They walked with him. Together, they emerged from the other side. Danny collapsed, his skin red and blistered, his lungs burning from the heated air. Dracorath healers rushed forward, applying cooling compounds and ancient medicines. The pain began to fade, replaced by a strange floating sensation. Gornash knelt beside him. In his hand he held a single claw, his own freshly removed. The Alpha's blood dripped onto the chamber floor. "This will hurt," he warned, "but it will make you ours forever." Danny nodded. Gornash used the claw to carve a symbol into Danny's shoulder, the mark of the Bloodclaw clan. The pain was sharp but brief, nothing compared to the fire. As the blood flowed, Gornash spoke words in the ancient Dracorath tongue. Then he translated them for all to hear. "From this day you are Gordony of the Bloodclaw. Your enemies are our enemies. Your blood is our blood. When you call, we answer. This is the bond that outlasts stars." The assembled Dracorath responded with a roar that shook the station. The sound vibrated through Danny's bones, through his soul. He felt something change inside him, something permanent and profound. He was no longer alone in the universe. Sierra helped him stand. Tears were streaming down her scaled face. Danny had not known Dracorath could cry. "You are brother now," she said. "For all time, wherever you go, we go with you. Whoever threatens you threatens us all." Danny looked at the mark on his shoulder. The blood claw symbol was already scarring, becoming part of him. "I don't know what to say." Gornash placed his clawed hand on Danny's unmarked shoulder. "Say nothing. Brothers do not need words." Outside the Dracorath section, word was spreading across the station, then across the galaxy. A human had been named brother to the most feared warriors in known space. The implications were staggering. But in a dark corner of the galaxy, enemies were already planning. The human Dracorath bond could not be allowed to stand. And they would do anything to break it. 3 months later, Danny was waist-deep in a freezing river in the Cascade Mountains, helping pull a stranded kayaker to safety. His shoulder ached where the clan mark had scarred, a constant reminder of his brothers among the stars. His communicator buzzed with an encrypted signal. He finished the rescue, handed the kayaker off to the waiting paramedics, and checked the message. It was from Sierra, 3 words, "Bloodclaw trapped." Danny made calls, he pulled strings. Within 6 hours, he had the full story. The Bloodclaw clan had been ambushed on a frontier world called Ravensfall. A coalition of enemies, survivors of the destroyed consortium, species who feared the human Dracorath alliance, mercenaries hired by unknown parties, had trapped them in a canyon with no escape. Gornash was wounded. The clan was surrounded. They had sent a final message home, expecting to die fighting. Danny contacted Earth's United Space Command and explained the situation. Admiral Chen listened carefully, then shook her head. "I understand your feelings, Mr. Reeves, but we cannot risk human military vessels for an alien species. The political implications alone would be devastating." "They're not aliens," Danny said. "They're my brothers." "I'm sorry, the answer is no." Danny stood up from the communications console. "Then I resign, effective immediately." He walked out of the command center and began making different calls. The response surprised everyone, including Danny. Within 12 hours, ships began appearing at the rally point he had designated. Not military vessels, but everything else. Cargo haulers fitted with weapons, mining ships with reinforced hulls, private yachts owned by wealthy humans who had heard the story of the small human and the apex predators. Veterans came out of retirement. Active military personnel went AWOL, willing to face court-martial for this mission. Civilian pilots with armed vessels answered the call. The story had spread across human space. Everyone knew about Gordany, the small human who had earned brotherhood with the most feared species in the galaxy. And humans, it turned out, protected their own. 53 ships, Danny's. Navigator reported as they approached Raven's Fall. More still coming. Danny stood at the bridge of a converted freighter, watching the planet grow larger in the viewport. Then 53 ships will have to be enough. The Coalition forces were not expecting resistance. They had planned to destroy the trapped Dracorath at their leisure, broadcasting the massacre as a warning to any species considering alliance with humanity. They were not prepared for a fleet of mismatched human vessels dropping out of hyperspace directly above them. The battle was fierce and brutal. Human ships were not designed for military combat, but humans had been fighting against impossible odds since they first stood upright on Earth. They fought with fury and creativity, using their ships as weapons when their weapons ran dry. Danny's freighter made a hard landing on the planet's surface while the battle raged overhead. He led a team of 20 volunteers through the jungle toward the canyon where the Blood Claw clan was trapped. They found the Dracorath in a defensive circle, backs to a cliff wall, surrounded by enemy forces. Gornash stood at the center despite his wounds, still fighting, still roaring defiance at the creatures trying to kill his clan. Danny raised his rifle. Move fast, kill anything that isn't Dracorath or human. They hit the enemy forces from behind like a blade through flesh. The Coalition troops, focused entirely on the trapped Dracorath, never saw the humans coming until it was too late. Danny fought his way through to Gornash's side. The Alpha was bleeding from a dozen wounds, his remaining eye blazing with battle fury. "Did you really think I wouldn't come?" Danny asked, dropping an enemy with a precise shot. Gornash laughed, that rare rumbling sound that shook the ground. "I knew you would. I told them. They did not believe a small human would cross the galaxy for us." "Then they don't understand humans." Together, humans and Dracorath broke the siege. The Coalition forces retreated in chaos, their ships fleeing as human reinforcements continued to arrive. When it was over, the canyon floor was littered with enemy dead. The Blood Claw clan had lost warriors, but they had survived. Because of humans, because of their brother. Gornash addressed both species as the sun set over Raven's Fall. "Today you have shown what humans are," he declared, his voice carrying across the battlefield. "Not small. Not weak, loyal beyond reason, fierce beyond measure. The galaxy laughed at the small human, now the galaxy knows what it means to be his enemy." In the weeks that followed, everything changed. The Earth-Dracorath Mutual Defense Pact was signed in a ceremony attended by representatives from both species. For the first time in galactic history, humanity had formed a formal alliance with an apex predator species. When reporters asked about the unusual origin of the alliance, Gornash had a simple answer. "My brother taught us that size does not determine heart. Humans taught us that those who have nothing to prove are often the most dangerous of all. We are honored to hunt beside them." Danny stood beside him, the clan mark visible on his shoulder. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, the entire galaxy was watching. "Mr. Reeves," one reporter called out, "do you have any message for the species who tried to destroy this alliance?" Danny looked at Gornash. The old Alpha nodded once. Danny turned back to the cameras. "Don't laugh at the small ones," he said. "We're the ones crazy enough to walk through fire for family." Beside him, the Blood Claw clan roared their approval. And across the galaxy, the message was clear. Humanity had found its brothers among the stars. Anyone who threatened one would face them both.